Welcome to the AP Physics. This is the test prep for the FRQ. Here I will be showing you the paragraph argumentation question that appears on the AP Physics 1 FRQ section. The paragraph argumentation question that we're going to be looking at is the 2018 question number 5. The paragraph response question is one of the most hardest ones because it is the lowest in terms of the amount of points students earn. And one of the reasons why it is the lowest is because the way it's graded. Okay, so first of all, let's take a look here. Here you could read the scenario to yourself. What's basically happening is that this is a simple harmonic oscillator with a block with a regular M, and it oscillates at AP and minus AP. And there's a period, which is TP, to TP, which is what it's normally oscillating with. Once the second block is introduced, which is TPQ, okay, there the period changes. So here the first part is actually just to ask you to determine the numerical value of the ratio of the period when both blocks are together, TPQ divided by TP, which is the period of just the bottom alone. So let's take a look at how it's graded. Here, 1 point is earned for the correct answer of square root 3. That's it. Very straightforward. So here, the first student answer equals to 1. That's not going to get you any points because that's not the correct answer. It's very straightforward. Here, the student did give you a square root of 3, but notice the student wrote this and wrote this, but where's the algebra? Where are the steps here? Where's the algebra? Okay, the student still got the correct answer, but how did they get the correct answer? Right? The graders didn't even care. The graders still give them that point. The graders will only look at the final answer. So the algebra didn't really matter when they asked you to determine here. Here, the student did correct the answer, but what the student did here was he actually derived. Okay, because he started from a first principles point of view by looking at the original equation, then doing the whole algebra. This does require you to know properties of the square root and how to rationalize the denominator. That's how you get the square root of 3 in the end. So here the student got the full points. So the difference, notice here still earn 1 point, here still earns 1 point. They were just looking at the final answer. They didn't care about the intermediate step. Okay? Now let's take a look here. The last part, it says the figure is reproduced above. How does the amplitude, just think about that as the amount of energy of the oscillator of APQ when the two blocks are there originally compared to just when it is alone. So compare the energy of both blocks together versus the energy of the oscillation when it is just the block. All the paragraph response questions will always say in a clear, coherent paragraph length that may contains diagram, equations, explain your reasoning. Let's take a look at how it's graded. Okay, there's some keywords in the way it's graded that should help you understand from the grader's point of view what they can give you. First of all, the response is graded even if you get an incorrect answer. They just want to make sure you follow your logic. Second, for correctly finding that the pole speed has decreased, so you have to show it's decreased. Oh, first of all, sorry, they apply the conservation of momentum. So this is the state a principle or a law. Okay, and here they use conservation of momentum. If you said conservation of energy, you might not get the point here. It has to be conservation of momentum because it was a collision. Here they also wrote the pulse energy speed decrease. Then the first 2 points can be earned if they state that the collision is elastic. That makes sense because, right, two blocks hit each other and conservation of momentum was conserved. So there is a way of answering this with conservation of momentum and still getting it correctly. Next point is earned for stating about the kinetic energy. There's two words here that make it very interesting. You can either state or imply. Okay? State means you can physically look on the surface. This is an on the surface for the word kinetic energy decrease. Implied means it's under the surface. So the reader really has to see if you're mentioning anything about kinetic energy. All right? Then, same thing, state or implied. The collision equals the maximum potential energy. Then state or imply the maximum energy is reached when the displacement from equilibrium equals the amplitude. Then lastly, this is very unique to the paragraph response, is that it has to be logical, relevant, and consistent. It's going to make more sense once we look at some responses and see how the graders use this grading criteria. So here, the correct choice was made. So it does say that the amplitude is less when the two blocks are together. And this is the explanation. All right. So 1 point is earned that the velocity of the two blocks is less. So the speed oscillator has decreased. That's how they got that point. But the rest here is not consistent because what the student talked about here was actually considered to be information about the waves. There was no connection to the simple harmonic oscillator. So the grader wrote, although the paragraph goes on to draw a correct conclusion, that conclusion is actually about the waves. The argument being made is not relevant for the motion of a simple harmonic motion oscillator, so no additional points were earned. They should have said that the oscillation of the block behaves like a wave, and this is the information in regards to the oscillating block. Here, this is the second example. Student says because the object sticks together, we know that the total kinetic energy in the system decreases, so that should earn them a point. Kinetic energy decreases as well. Potential energy decreases. Here's an equation, and displacement and amplitude decreases. So it looks good. So that earns 2 points. 2 points were not earned because the response does not apply conservation momentum. Oh, that's correct. So the student starts analyzing this without stating a principle or a law. That's where the loss of the point was. Okay, and it did not find the post collection speed has decreased. There's no mention of the post speed, potential energy, kinetic energy. Nope, there's no mention of that. But the student does earn everything else. Lastly, notice that the student does earn the point for the response that is logical, relevant, and internally consistent. So let me show you what the grader actually did. So the grader saw this, and the grader's like, nope, nope here. But the grader was like, okay, it earns all 3 points here. The fact that you earn all 3 points here is why you're allowed to get this one. Because these 3 points explain this earns the 1 point down here. That's how it works. Okay? That's how this student earned that last point. Because they earned the middle 3 points. Take a look here. Alright? So here, the student does earn the first point for stating the principle or law. Here, they said momentum is conserved. Alright, good. And then final velocity is 1/3 of the initial. Then, what else did they say? Kinetic energy is converted to spring potential. And therefore, it's less. And the block here is less than the block of B. Yeah, so that's it. So they earn all points. So this was for the first point. That's for the second point. This is the middle 3. So 3, 4, 5. And then the fact that they earned these in between points, they get the last point of the logical consistent argument. Okay? This is the way the graders wrote it. So this was the first two, 1 and 2, that I explained here, 1 and 2. That is for applying the conservation momentum to the collision and find the post-collision speed is 1/3 of the initial. They even wrote 1/3 here of the initial. So that was on the surface. The student actually stated that. Then they earn 1 point for the calculation, 1 for implicitly stating, and for implicitly stating it. So I looked at the keywords here, and that's what the graders did. They looked for the keywords here that allowed them the justification on why it decreased. Okay, so it was implied. The fact that they earn all 3 points allows them to get the last one for the response is logical, relevant, and consistent. All right. So the reason why this question is very hard to get points on is the way it's graded for the stating or the implying. Okay, as long as you provide information that the graders know that you're implying it, you can still earn the points. If you do not get any of these points, you cannot earn this. Cannot earn this without getting these 3 points. An easy way to earn points here is make sure you're stating the right conservation. Conservation of energy or conservation of momentum. It's one of those 2 conservation laws will always get you a point. You just got to figure out which one you're using. All right? But there you go. This is the only paragraph argumentation question that is out that can potentially appear, because the other paragraph response questions are on sections that are removed, like circuits and the electro stuff. That was removed. So this is the only problem that gives you a clear example of how the paragraph response is graded on the AP Physics 1 exam.